Hello and welcome to Todd Rolls Dice, where we have our first 500 Worlds lore drop, focusing on Titus and the Ultramarines. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not really happy about this one. It's a sad day for defenders of the Imperium. I don't quite know how much we're going to run through. In fact, we'll run through the whole thing, because some people out there, like me, may not know many of these characters. So hopefully you find this interesting. But how about we jump into the lore, and hopefully it'll get real interesting at some point. 500 Worlds. How did Titus become captain of the Second Company again? I'd like to know how he became captain the first time, to be honest. With the stunning reveal of the new Captain Titus miniature and the revelation of his return to the captaincy of the Ultramarine Second Company, we're taking a look back at the renowned officers who have occupied that position over the history of Warhammer 40,000. The Second Company have had quite a few celebrated captains in recent years, so where do they all fit in? We'll start with the battle for Macragge, a moment that defined the Ultramarines in the broad canon of the 41st millennium. Severus Agaman, better known as captain of the Ultramarines' veteran First Company, Severus Agaman commanded the Second Company until the previous First Captain, Saul Invictus, was killed at the height of the battle for Macragge, more than 250 years before the opening of the Great Rift. Most recently, he's been appointed to the position of Tetrarch by Rabute Guilliman and ordered to reclaim Ultramar's northern borders. Okay, a task perfectly suited to his boundless experience and wisdom. So he now leads the First Company. That's a nice promotion, you know, rocking around with Terminators and veterans. But he's still in the lore. I don't think he has a miniature, does he? I suppose generic captain, you could just paint him up like that. Ultramarines him up a bit. That's cool. I didn't know that he was still around. And maybe there's going to be some link in with this 500 Worlds campaign, if he's actually out there fighting in the northern borders of said campaign. Lucian Trajan. Captain Trajan rose to command of the Second Company in the wake of Agaman's promotion. He had served under Agaman as First Sergeant and benefited greatly from his former captain's tutelage. His tenure lasted for over a century of glorious victory, until the battle against the Eldari of Craft World Beltan turned sour. While defending an Imperium world from the Xenos, Trajan slew the enemy's Autarch in single combat, only to learn that the retreating Eldari had taken one of his Ultramarines captive. I'm not going to jump to the star. We'll have a look at the star at the end, because there's a lot of lore in it. Leading a squad to rescue them, he fell into the clutches of an enemy trap and was gunned down, leaving his command squad sergeant, one Demetrian Titus, to rout the foe and recover his body. So that's how Titus comes into it. That's cool. Oh, I really like this lore. Demetrian Titus, everybody's favourite boy in blue. Though he was content to remain a sergeant and had no aspirations for overall command, Titus eventually accepted Marneus Calgar's request that he lead the Second Company. A decade after taking up the mantle, Titus embarked on his fateful mission to the Forge world of Graia, where he slew the Chaos Sorcerer Nemeroth, but was taken into custody by Inquisitor Thrax after his subordinate Leandros questioned the captain's seeming resistance to the influence of chaos. You'd think that resistance to chaos would be seen as a good thing, wouldn't you? Thrax would later be consumed by chaos himself, a workplace hazard for the Inquisition, and Titus was freed when the Grey Knights purged the Inquisitor's holdings. Believing he had brought shame on his chapter, Titus elected to join the Death Watch as a Black Shield rather than return to the Ultramarines. I want a game that is Titus in the Death Watch. I think that should have been Space Marine 2. I think a lot of people think that should have been Space Marine 2. But Games Workshop, you need to buy into the Death Watch thing so much more, because it would be an incredible, be it a tactical shooter, first-person shooter, third-person shooter, top-down CRPG of Death Watch, like Chaos Gate style. Just anything Death Watch would be amazing. Cato Sicarius. I didn't know he was in this. With Titus missing and his own First Sergeant Sidonius slain during the events of Graia, it was decided that Cato Sicarius would take the reins of the Second Company due to his exemplary martial skills and uncompromising service to the chapter. He accumulated many honours and awards during his time leading the company, such as earning the Valor Crest and being hailed as the Knight Champion of Macragge. Sicarius' captaincy covered many decisive campaigns for the Ultramarines, including the notorious Damnos incident and the returned Primarch Rabute Guilliman's Terran Crusade. After being dispatched back to Macragge with the first host of Primaris Space Marines, his ship was lost in the warp for 5 long years, during which time the Ultramarines declared Sicarius missing in action and instated a new captain in his place. Sevastus Acheron, the Scottish accented captain from Space Marine 2, who I really liked. I thought he was cool. I wish that we saw him in action more. I wonder what happened to him. Like many captains, Sevastus Acheron originally served as an officer under his predecessor, but was not with Cato Sicarius when his fateful voyage was swallowed up by the threshing of the Great Rift. He led the Second Company through many of the defining conflicts of the early Indomitus Crusade, seeing action on Vigilus, within the Pariah Nexus, in Ultramar during the Plague Wars, and in the Fourth Tyrannic War. Most famously, he commanded the company when Titus was reclaimed during the Wars of the Residius system. You may just have encountered him yourself while playing Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. Acheron's illustrious service came to an end upon the hive world of Trigue, a vital and seemingly loyal stronghold that safeguarded the Pyamote system from Tyranid incursion. After a Munitorum survey vessel and its escort of Mordian Iron Guard disappeared, that's another reference to Mordian Iron Guard. We keep hearing about Mordian Iron Guard recently. Hopefully they're going to get some models. That would be really cool to see more diversity in the Guard. Anyway, after it disappeared, letting out a single psychic scream before vanishing without a trace, Acheron led a strike force to investigate, accompanied by his decorated lieutenant, Brother Chiron, who is my favourite character in Space Marine 2. If anything happened to him, I'd be sad. What they found was a powerful gene-stealer cult embedded in the primary hive, their influence stretching from the Undercity all the way up to the spires, poised to crack open the world's defences when the Tyranids arrived. The cult's uprising had already begun and threatened to spread across the planet. In order to contain it, Acheron chose to activate the Hive's anti-atomic lockdown protocols, sealing his entire force inside the city with a nearly endless horde of enraged cultists. This noble choice to sacrifice himself and his brothers kept the Genestealer cult bottled up and saved the world and a vulnerable sector from certain doom. Every last Space Marine that landed on Trigue was slowly worn down in a series of increasingly desperate battles. When the Imperium reinforcements arrived to purge the last of the cult, they discovered that Acheron, Chiron, and the rest of their brothers had sold their lives to cull untold numbers of Xenos hybrids. Pour one out for Chiron. He was the best of them, the Ultramarines, I think. Well, no, Titus is the best of them, but I think that this is... Acheron, I understand, because they needed to get him out of the way, and you can't really promote him because he's not done a huge... He's done a lot, I suppose, recently. But Chiron? Why kill Chiron? Chiron backed Titus. Chiron and Titus had a fairly strong bond. You would have thought that Titus would have wanted Chiron with him. I suppose it's Acheron's call, isn't it, of who he takes. But Chiron was my favourite character in Space Marine 2. I hope to see more of him one day. And we still might. There's a lot of time jumping here. But to be killed off screen, and not even like a big article about it, he's just name dropped twice that he's dead, and he's one of the main characters of the biggest game in Warhammer 40,000 history. I think that this is a brutal move by Games Workshop, and I am not happy about it. It's their law, they can do what they want, but I do wonder how much Saber Interactive knows about this. All of a sudden, Titus is much, much bigger and probably less likely to be leading squads, small skirmish squads, by himself. So how is all of this going to fit in with the next game? Rest in peace, Chiron. You fought well and died for the Emperor. Back to Demetrian Titus. Titus, again. After his legendary victory against the Tyranids and Thousand Suns in the Residius system, his survival on the seemingly suicidal mission to destroy Chaos artifacts on Zauj? Are we going with Zauj? And further successes against the Tyranids on several worlds in the Bastior subsector, Titus was the clear candidate to succeed Acheron. Misgivings from many of his peers had long since been silenced, and Titus took up the role, swearing to honour his former captain's legacy as he leads the Second Company and fulfills the duties of the Master of the Watch. a responsibility of the role. It is now Captain Titus's duty to fortify the borders of Ultramar and defend his chapter's realm even as it expands at Guilliman's command. Every new conquest is another drain on resources, and his task is difficult in the extreme. But with his Wardens of Ultramar adding their substantial strength to his cause and an agile fleet of elite warriors at his command, Titus is exactly the Space Marine for the job. Find out more about the battles of 500 Worlds Titus and the exceptional individuals in the good Captain's command staff, as well as the insidious Necron threat assaulting Ultramar, right here on WarCom as we get closer to release, and we will be covering that stuff. So you can learn more about the Grey Knights and their assault on the Inquisitor that resulted in them finding Titus in White Dwarf 498, and the captive that was saved way back was a young Ultramarine named Leandros. So Captain Trajan gave his life to save Leandros. I feel like that's not worth the trade. This article is going to wind a lot of people up, and I mean, it's very Games Workshop to just kill people off screen. I think it's safe to say that while there is some ambiguity about certain characters' deaths that they've mentioned on Warcom, I do think that Chiron won't be coming back. I think that it's just a stupid decision. I understand that they needed to elevate Titus. Titus is now the face of Warhammer 40,000, so they needed to put him in a prominent position and just make sure that his face is on everything for the next however many years. But the fact that Gadriel and his mentor from the Secret Level show are in his command squad, and then you've got some humans, I don't understand why you couldn't have Chiron in there, because that would have just been amazing, I think. I hope that we get more lore about this. I hope that this Titus, or the start of this end campaign focusing on Titus, gives us some reflection or something about Chiron, because being mentioned twice in 3 paragraphs, I suppose, just it isn't worthy of a character that you actually play as. One of the main characters in the biggest game in Warhammer 40,000 history. It's like, for Halo fans out there, it's basically like turning around and saying, yeah, so the Arbiter died off screen in a novel that you've never read. It doesn't make sense. And okay, there might not be the history that Arbiter has with the Halo franchise. Arbiter's been around for 20 years. But how many people playing co-op in a 3 played as Chiron and have that connection to Chiron? Really interesting article. I'm not sure about all of the lore choices, but I think it's fair to say that we had to get rid of Acheron, and he can't just disappear. It would have been interesting if he'd have moved to the 10th Company or something, and he was now training scouts, because he was like Phobos-y, wasn't he? But it is what it is, I suppose. Did he ever have a named model? I know the Phobos captain represents him, but I don't know if he ever had a named model. But still, Titus is back, and it is definitely shaping up 2 things. One, that the state of the galaxy is in is going to be incredibly serious as soon as the Necrons hit the Ultramar sector. It's going to be an incredible fight, and I'm looking forward to this campaign. And 2, it sounds like not everyone is safe. If you have a model, I'm fairly certain, or a new model, this edition, maybe, I'm fairly certain you're safe. But everybody else, hey, maybe we've hit that Game of Thrones moment with Warhammer 40,000. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, please let me know. Leave a like, subscribe, do all of the incredible YouTube things that you guys are so good at doing. It is very much appreciated. We'll be back with some more previews and more 500 World stuff as and when it comes up. I'm very much looking forward to doing something with this on the channel. As we get more, I love an end narrative campaign, but we'll see. Fingers crossed it's good. We'll find out very soon. But as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.